I'm Allie, a 29-year-old woman. I grew up in a single-parent home. My dad passed away when I was really young, and my mom never remarried. She worked hard every single day to feed me and clothe me, and she never failed to tell me about her struggles. I guess that was why I always felt so indebted to her, even when she treated me like trash. You see, my mom would complain about working so hard to feed me, yet she would constantly criticize me for my weight. I remember the first time I hated myself when I was 8, and my mom walked in on me eating a bar of chocolate after dinner. She yelled at me and told me that I was getting too fat and ugly for her liking. That never stopped. It only got worse as the years progressed. I tried to talk to her, but it never worked. All I got were more insults. The thing is that I wasn't even fat or ugly either. I weighed the normal weight for my age and height, and I got a fair amount of attention from boys. I just didn't understand why my mom hated me so much. I wanted to move out when I turned 18, but I didn't have the funds to do it, so I was stuck living with my mom while I attended college. It was at college that I had my first boyfriend. He was charming and handsome, your typical jock. I was madly in love with him. We got together in the second year and were together until a little after we graduated. I was convinced that he was going to be the one for me. Of course, my mom hated the fact that I had a boyfriend, and I noticed that she would always praise him, but in the same line, insult me. It did not help my already non-existent self-esteem. My boyfriend at that time and I had decided to wait a year and then get married. About 2 months after that decision, he suddenly broke up with me. I was confused and hurt. When I tried to ask him why, he just looked at me in disgust. At that moment, I wanted nothing but the comfort of my mother, so I ran into her arms and cried. Instead of comforting me, she laughed. Thank God he left. He deserves so much better than you. What? Oh yeah, that boy was a pretty tough nut to crack. What do you mean? Oh, it's nothing. He was madly in love with you, but with a little nudge from me, he was able to see the light. See the light? Do you mean, are you saying that you are the reason he broke up with me? What did you say to him? Oh, nothing you don't already know. I just opened his eyes to how ugly you are. When he saw it, he didn't want to marry you, so that's a win. What the hell is wrong with you? There's something seriously wrong in your head. How could you do this to your daughter? Stop being so dramatic, Allie. I know you're sad, but for your own sake, don't indulge in sweets. It'll make you gain more weight. That was what made me snap. I had worked part-time for a long while and had a decent amount of money saved up. That night, while my mom was asleep, I packed my things up and moved out of the house. I stayed at a friend's place until I got myself an apartment. It took a lot of time to heal after that, but when I did, I began to put myself out there a lot more. I began to feel confident in myself. Sometimes I would feel sad that my mom didn't even make an effort to call me or check up on me, but I got over it. I began to check in on her when I felt better, but I still kept the contact minimal. And then I met Holt. Holt and I bumped into each other at a coffee shop. We happened to sit in the same booth because everywhere else was full. We got to talking, and he turned out to be this amazing guy with a great sense of humor. We exchanged numbers, and well, the rest was history. Holt and I dated for around 3 years before deciding to make it official. In those 3 years, I got to meet and interact with Holt's family, who accepted me with open arms. That was a very healing experience. I told Holt about my history with my mom, and needless to say, he was not her biggest fan. I was so incredibly happy to be marrying Holt. I felt like I was on top of the world. It felt like nothing could bring me down. And Holt felt the same way. I could tell because he had a skip in his step, and he was, in general, really happy. It felt great that someone loved me unconditionally. My looks didn't matter, and part of me just wanted to shove that in my mother's face. I knew it would be petty? But when your own mother bullies you about your looks from when you were 5 until you're well into adulthood, you're going to want to be petty. Holt and I began planning the wedding immediately after we got engaged. I kept my idea of revenge on the back burner because I didn't know if it was morally right. About 2 months into planning our wedding, Holt asked me about who I wanted to invite. So, who are you thinking of inviting? Well, all my close family and friends. I don't think I'll have a lot of people to invite. All right. And I don't mean to be insensitive. When you say family, are you asking me if I'm going to invite my mom? Yeah, I know it's a sensitive topic, but I just want some confirmation. I was actually thinking of inviting her. Oh, really? How come? Okay, I know this will sound mean, but I kind of want to rub it in her face, and I've become who she always told me I wouldn't be. Like she used to constantly tell me that no man would ever love me because of my looks. But here I am. Oh, honey, I don't think that's mean at all. In fact, I fully support it. It's the least mean thing I've ever heard of, but it's perfect considering everything that your mother put you through. Really? So you're okay with it? I am, as long as you are. Although I will say that if your mother says anything rude to you, I will interfere. That's absolutely okay. Thanks for supporting me. That's exactly what I'm here for, isn't it? It felt great to have Holt validate my feelings. He knew about the extent of the damage that my mom did to my self-esteem, and yet he was more than willing to accommodate me. I felt a new wave of excitement then. I couldn't wait to brag to my mom about my marriage. I mean, not only was I marrying a rich and handsome man, but it was also a man who showed me in every way possible that he loved me more than anything. That was definitely going to embarrass my mom. For the next few days, as we finalized the technicalities of the invitation, like the look of it and the fonts and the paper, I couldn't help but wonder how my mom would react. Would she go red in the face from humiliation? Would she apologize? Would she actually for once be proud of me? I know that I seem naive to only be thinking about the best case scenarios, but I couldn't help it. Even though I barely contacted her anymore, she was still the only parent I had, and I wanted to have some form of relationship with her. Don't get me wrong, I would never have forgiven her that easily. She put me through years of therapy because of her bullying. I would make sure that she apologized to me properly and then cautiously build a relationship with her. Every time that I had a negative thought about her reaction, I pushed it away because I didn't know how I would have dealt with it. When it came time to print the invitations out, Holt and I sat together and hand wrote the names of our guests on the invitations. We wanted to do a traditional male invitation. When I was writing my mother's name on the invitation, Holt was looking over my shoulder. That's when he held my hand to stop me. I looked at him in confusion. Is everything okay? Yeah, it's just... Do you not want me to invite my mom? No, it's not that. That's your mom's full name? Yeah, why? You guys have different last names. Oh yeah, my mom kept her maiden name after she got married. I got my dad's name. That's funny. Why? What's wrong? I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I have an employee with that same exact name. What? That's crazy. Yeah, she plans to retire in another year or two. This is super weird. I mean, your mom's name and maiden name are not very popular ones, do you think? I don't know which company she works for, but do you maybe have files of your employees on hand with you right now, or even a staff picture? Oh yeah, of course I do. Holt shot up from the couch and ran into his office. My heart was pounding. What were the chances? I had always believed that the world was a small place, but for it to be this small was crazy. Holt came back with his laptop in hand, and we sat down together to find a picture of the woman with the same name as my mom. Thankfully, the company had just had an event recently and a lot of pictures were taken. Holt and I scrolled through a lot of the pictures before I finally saw her. It was my mom. She was laughing at something someone had said while she held a drink in her hand. I just stared in shock for a couple of seconds before bursting out in laughter. Holt asked me if that was my mom, and I said that it was. Of course, Holt didn't know much about my mom, other than why I didn't keep much contact with her. Holt and I shared a laugh after that because it truly was amazing how wonderful the universe had aligned to put my mother in her place. So now, not only was I going to get married to a rich and handsome man who loved me, but I was also getting married to my mom's boss. That was something I definitely wanted to brag about. I hoped desperately for her sake that she was on her best behavior because she didn't know what she could be risking if she even tried to say anything against me. When we finally sent out the invites, we got a ton of responses almost immediately after they were delivered. I tracked them all to ensure that they reached safely. When I saw that my mom's invitation was accepted, I had hoped to get a quick response, but I got nothing for over a week. I began to lose hope that my mom was even going to come to my wedding. I tried to tell myself that it was no big deal, but like I said, she was my only parent, and getting married was the biggest event in anyone's life. Of course, I wanted my mom there, even if she just sat there silently. Holt could see that I was down and he comforted me. He reminded me that regardless of whether my mom came to the wedding, it would still be our day. We would still be surrounded by people that actually loved us. I began to feel better, but I wasn't fully convinced, and then I got my mom's RSVP and she said yes. That was it. She didn't try to say anything other than yes. Yeah, it hurt that she didn't even call to ask about who I was marrying or even ask about the wedding, but at least she would be there. I messaged her and asked her if she would have liked to be a part of the rehearsal dinner, and she once again replied with just a yes. Having my mom there was a win, a small win, but a win nonetheless. I felt happy. On the day of the rehearsal dinner, I was a nervous wreck. While I was also nervous for my big day, I was also nervous because I would be meeting my mom after 3 years for the first time. I made sure that my dress was perfect, that my hair was all in place, and that my makeup was properly blended. I couldn't help but think at that moment that I didn't even make that much of an effort for Holt. My mom walked into the rehearsal dinner and found me immediately. Holt was busy talking to someone else in some other place in the hall, so Mom never noticed him. She made a beeline straight to me. I felt my hands get clammy as she approached me, but I calmed myself down by reminding myself that no matter what happened, I had the upper hand. She greeted me with a hug before looking me up and down and laughing. I felt myself shrivel up on the inside. She was judging me again, and I felt like the helpless little girl that I was all those years ago. So, who's the unlucky guy? I see you still haven't become skinny, so you must have found some ugly hobo. Mom, that's beyond rude. Oh, please, whoever is choosing to marry you while you look like this must be clearly blind and very unlucky. Actually, I think you're the unlucky one, Quinn. Holt? What are you doing here? What do you think? Didn't his name look familiar to you at all? Well, yeah, but I didn't think... You didn't think what? That your daughter would be capable of marrying someone like me because you think she's too ugly? Or am I enough of a hobo for me to be able to marry your daughter? No, well, I didn't mean it like that. Look, you're on thin ice. It's bad enough that you've insulted me, but if I hear you say one more word against Allie, I swear that I will make your life miserable. Okay, but I must say that Allie, you are an absolute piece of work for purposely going after my boss. What did you think it would do for you? Did you think that I would go easier on you? I didn't purposely go after your boss. We only happened to find out when we were sending the invites, but I did hope to mend our relationship. I guess that won't be happening. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the dinner and I'll see you tomorrow. With that, Holt and I walked away hand in hand. When we had gotten a good distance away from her and out of her eyesight, we dissolved into laughter. The look of absolute horror on her face when she saw Holt was a look I was never going to forget. Yeah, I hoped for a much nicer interaction, but to see her put in her place was actually a lot more satisfying. I was so caught up in my emotions that I didn't even notice Holt walk up to us, but I was really glad that he had managed to come to us right in time. The rest of the evening passed by without any other incident. The next day was hectic. However, when it came time for the ceremony, all I could feel was an immense amount of pride in myself. Seeing Holt stand at the altar with tears in his eyes as he watched me walk down the aisle made all the hours of getting ready worth it. I happened to scan the crowd and spotted my mom. She noticed I was looking at her and she pulled a face. That face was no ordinary face. It was the face she always made whenever I looked ugly or fat. I stumbled as I walked. For a second, I questioned everything I felt. I knew I looked beautiful, but to see my mom so outwardly tell me with her expression that I didn't made me feel very, very insecure. I looked at Holt and all my doubts vanished. He still looked at me like I was the only girl in the room. Other than that, there was no other hitch in the ceremony. Holt and I exchanged our vows through tears and the crowds cheered as we kissed. On our way to the reception hall, I told Holt about what had happened earlier in the ceremony. So, something happened earlier in the ceremony. What happened? Are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm fine right now. Okay, good. Then tell me what happened. Well, when I was walking down the aisle, I stumbled a little and almost fell. Yeah, I was a little worried. Yeah, well, I happened to look into the crowd and I saw my mother just making this face at me. It was the face she always made at me to tell me that I didn't look good. My God, what the hell is wrong with that woman? How could she do that to her own daughter on her special day? I don't know, but in that moment all I wanted to do was run away and cry. But then I took one look at you and I felt all right. That's right. If your mother does something like that again, just look at me. You're beautiful, and nothing your mother says or does will ever change that. Thanks. I needed that. And I was being serious when I said that. I would take action if your mom did something against you again. Now that I know just how much leverage I have over her, you best believe that I will make sure she learns her lesson properly. And I'll be okay with whatever you do. The reception started off well. We started with dancing and drinking, and everyone was having an overall great time. Holt and I greeted all our guests and held conversations with them. I found myself feeling better and better with every interaction. At some point, I saw my mom walk into the hall, but she ignored us and walked straight to the bar. I felt kind of bad, but I figured being ignored was better than being told I looked ugly again, so I let it go. Holt kept me by his side the entire time. I was grateful for that because it was a great distraction. Finally, it came time for the toasts. Holt started it off with a heartfelt toast to us and our relationship, which honestly made me cry. I followed after him, and I was happy to see that I was able to make him feel the same emotions he made me feel with my toast. If there was one thing to mention about the toast time, it was that with every toast that was made to Holt and me, my mom scoffed. It got her a lot of dirty looks, but that did not stop her. At some point, she stood up and said that she had a toast to give to us too. My heart dropped. I knew my mother, and I knew how evil she could be. I knew that this would not end well. Holt held my hand, and when I looked at him, his jaw was clenched. At least we both felt the same anxiety at that moment. My mom began to talk about how I was undeserving of Holt. She praised Holt for the man he was and conveniently brought up how he was her boss, and a very good one at that. When she spoke of me, she kept talking about how ugly I was and how I should be grateful that Holt even spared me a glance. I felt sick. How could she say that? Holt looked like he was going to burst a vein from how hard he was restraining himself. The rest of our guests looked appalled. Finally, when my mother finished her god-awful speech, she sat down with a satisfied smirk on her face. She was happy with the reactions she got. Thankfully, the rest of the evening proceeded without anyone even mentioning what my mom had said. Holt and I tried our best to put everything behind us just for the night. Even when we finally got back home that night, neither of us spoke about it. There was an air of sadness, but we chose to ignore it because we were happy that we were finally legally and officially together. The next day, Holt left for work. He told me that something urgent had come up and he promised to be back by noon, so I didn't mind. True to his word, Holt came back home by noon and we settled into the couch to watch some of our favorite shows. An hour or so later, I heard a banging on the front door. Along with the banging, I heard my mom yelling for me to come out and open the door. I was confused and looked at Holt. I felt his urgent business had something to do with my mom. I walked to the door and opened it. "You absolute wretch! What did you say to him?" "Huh? What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. You made him fire me." "Holt fired you?" "Yeah, and I'm sure it's because of something you said. You're so stupid that you never know what you ever say." "I'm going to have to stop you there, Quinn. I don't think I need to remind you of your speech from yesterday." "But I praised you." "And you completely dissed your own daughter, who is my wife. How did you possibly think that was okay? I told you I'd make you regret it if you even said a word against her." "Whatever. You can't fire me for that. I'll sue you." "You've also been highly negligent with your work. I was going to fire you anyway, but kept you for a few months only because you are Allie's mother. Since you have no respect for her, I see no reason why I should even help you out. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're busy right now. Goodbye." I couldn't believe it. Holt stood up for me in a way that I hadn't even considered. Holt held me in his arms as I cried. I finally felt free. I felt so valued and respected, and I knew that I never wanted anything less than that from then on. I didn't care to find out what happened to Mom after that, and neither did Holt. The two of us continued to live our lives in blissful ignorance of her whereabouts. I've learned just how important it is to have and enforce your boundaries. Don't let anyone ever treat you like you're worth nothing, because I promise you, to someone else, you mean the world. Thank you. Hello, my name is Macy. I'm a 42-year-old woman who's been married twice. My second marriage has been amazing. My first was a train wreck. My first husband's name is Bobby, and we were high school sweethearts. We were your typical jock and cheerleader couple. We had a good time together, and he made me happy at that time. He was also my first relationship, so that was why I went so above and beyond for him. I thought he was my forever, and I sure acted like it too. We planned to go to the same university so we could be together, but in my second year, at 19 years old, I got pregnant. Now, my family was not happy, and neither was I. My mom warned me constantly that life would not be blissful, especially with Bobby. My family never liked him, although they could never tell me why, other than just that something about him felt off. Of course, as a teenager, I wanted to prove them wrong and rebel against them, so I ignored all their concerns. Our families agreed to support us until we graduated and got good jobs, which I was and still am super grateful for. Bobby and I got married in court, and we had our first child. At first, Bobby was an amazing father. I felt like I was proving everyone wrong. And then, about 2 years later, I got pregnant again. This time, I was a college graduate, but I had to quit my job so I could stay back and take care of the kids. Bobby worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. It was a tough life, but at that time I felt that as long as I had Bobby by my side, nothing could make me feel bad. But a couple of months after our second child, Bobby began to behave very differently. I tried to talk to him about it, but he never budged. And then one day, I had taken the kids out for a walk and came back to an empty apartment. None of Bobby's things were there. I panicked, of course, and seeing me panic made the kids cry. I tried calling him several times, but each time took me to voicemail. I remember rushing to my mother's place with 2 kids that were bawling while I tried my best to hold back my tears. My mother looked alarmed when she opened the door and let me in. What happened? I think Bobby left me. What? What do you mean? I took the kids for a walk, and when I got back, the house was empty of all his things. I can't get a hold of him either. Oh no, do you know why he might have left? I don't know. He'd been acting very differently for a while, but he wouldn't talk to me at all, and then today just happened. Okay, calm down a little. We should wait a little while, and if he doesn't show up, we'll file for divorce, and I'll help you out. But I loved him. How could he do this to his children? I know. I wish I could find him for you and ask him all these questions, but we have to move on. Not because it'll heal you, but because you have 2 kids to raise. My mom was right. So I spent the next few months painfully getting over him while raising 2 kids who looked a lot like him. I cried myself to sleep for many nights, but eventually months turned into years and I slowly got over the pain. My kids obviously asked questions about their father, and when they were old enough, I told them the truth. They were devastated, but surprisingly understanding about their past. Together, as a family, we learned to live past the pain. My mom was obviously the biggest help for us, and she made raising 2 kids easier than it would have been all by herself. I happened to meet my current husband, Fred, at a bar 13 years after Bobby left me. I was out with my friends for one of their birthdays. My mom had the kids, and I figured it was the best time to let loose and have a little fun with my friends. For the better of the night, I stuck to my friends and we just chatted and laughed for the most part. Towards the end of the night, I got approached by Fred. My friends had been begging me to get with the guy for years, but I was always too traumatized by Bobby to ever try again. So when Fred approached me, my friends left to go watch from further away as I made conversation with him. Fred started by asking me if he could buy me a drink. I was not going to turn down a free drink, so I obviously said yes. We waited until we got our drinks to properly start talking. So what brings you here? It's my friend's birthday and I'm just here to celebrate with her. That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them? All of them? There are 7 more people there. It's all right. I'll make up all the money I spent here in the next 2 hours, so no worries. Whoa, so you're rich? Ha, I guess you could say that. Of course I'm not trying to brag or anything. No, it's a great thing to flaunt. Not a lot of people get to do that, and not to mention you aren't being a prick about it. You're buying a bunch of strangers drinks because I told you that it was one of their birthdays. What can I say? I have a particular weakness for pretty women. You're so weak, you'll believe everything they say, even lies? Yes, of course. Although, did you lie? No. It is one of their birthdays, but it is concerning that pretty women make you weak. You should get that checked. How about you help me with it? Maybe if I had a pretty woman by my side, I'd only have a weakness for one woman. I could think of that. It was such a self-esteem boost to have been called pretty by Fred, especially because Fred looked gorgeous. He looked like he was worthy of being on the cover of a big magazine like Vogue. I was also surprised by my ability to casually flirt back with him. That was not something I was usually capable of. I was very much an introvert, so I don't know if it was the drink or just the aura that Fred radiated, but I felt comfortable enough to be flirty. Eventually, my friends came and got me, but not before profusely thanking Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers, and from then on, we were constantly talking to each other. It started off as texts, and then we would call each other whenever we had nothing going on, or if we had something interesting to share. We also started meeting up a lot more often. At first, we met up in very public places, but as the months went by, we started hanging out at each other's places. I remember the way my jaw dropped when I walked into his house because it was quite literally a mansion. Fred laughed at my shock and told me that I should get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. Fred was very open about wanting to marry me. He told me countless times how he had never felt so comfortable around anyone aside from me, and that only made me love him more. Fred was also more than open to me having kids. I remember him being particularly upset for me when I told him about Bobby. Ever since I told him, he went above and beyond to show me just how much I meant to him. Fred and Bobby were worlds apart, and it wasn't until Fred that I understood why so many people did not want me marrying or even just being with Bobby. I was glad that I got out of it, but I hated the way it happened. Fred helped me heal and forget all about it, which I was super grateful for. We only dated a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and we flew out all our guests, which were technically just a handful of them, because we only wanted those who were really close to us to be there. My kids were super happy for me and told me constantly that they loved Fred, which in my head was another big win. Life from then moved on very smoothly. Every single worry I had was eased. Fred helped my kids out with their education as well, even though I told him that I would take care of it. He showed me that he accepted us as a package deal and not just me and then my kids. He had my kids' rooms decorated and set up to their liking even before we moved in together. Fred did everything that Bobby didn't and more. That was a true point of healing for my small family. And that's how our family grew from then on. Fred and I had a child of our own, yet he never treated my kids differently. About a year after Fred and I got married, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which once again was a turning point in our family. After that, we became one big family. We did everything that families did, like going out to eat, going on vacations, doing fun things, etc. I was also doing well in my career, and Fred, well, his company was also doing amazing. There was not a single thing in my life that was wrong. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Look who it is, it's Macy. Who is this? Don't you recognize me? I don't think you remember much anyway. It's Bobby here. How are you doing? Bobby? What the hell? How did you even get my number? I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and I thought I'd give you a call to see how life has been treating you since you left me? Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble and both you and I know that we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word? Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do. You are a piece of work. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you know what good it has done me to have left you? I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you being serious right now? Yes, I married this really rich woman who had kids, but I was willing to overlook it because of her money. She came through though because she got me this amazing job that pays me so much money. I'm living my absolute dream. So you abandoned the kids you did have to father someone else's kids? You got to do what you got to do, am I right? please, never call me again. Goodbye." I was seething. The pure audacity of that man to call me only to brag about his new rich lifestyle. Of course, a part of me wanted to carry on the conversation with him so I could find out where he was, only so I could go there and punch him. But at the same time, I was so overwhelmed with so many different emotions that I could barely think straight. But after I cut the call on him, I felt so much hurt. Not for me, but for my kids. My poor kids grew up for the better parts of their lives without a father who was in fact too busy fathering his new wife's children. I knew we were struggling, but what did he expect? We were only high school graduates when we had our first child. Where in the world would we have gotten money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgust roll over me. He was the classic definition of a sleazebag. He clearly wasn't one to give someone attention unless they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. The chapter of my life had been closed for long enough and I never wanted it back open. I told Fred about it later on that night and he was understandably upset. But he was also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I got a call from another unknown number. It was Bobby once again. At this point, I was beginning to get frustrated. He called to brag again about his luxurious lifestyle. He told me all about the new expensive car he had just bought and how his kids were doing amazing at school. I didn't care to be polite this time and just hung the phone up on him. That did not stop him. He kept calling every week after that to keep telling me about all his expensive purchases. I kept blocking him with every number he called, but it seemed like he kept using different numbers to call me. At some point, I stopped picking up because then he only called me frequently. It seemed like he derived some sort of sick pleasure from bothering me so much. One particular day, I was at work and I was stressed when Bobby called me. "Oh, hey, Macy. Can't you just leave me alone?" "Oh, come on. I'm making up for the time that's been lost." "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you and neither do I. Leave me alone." "You know you love it, Macy." "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new good life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous that I'm living the life that you'll never be able to live?" "I can assure you I don't." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. I just got a promotion." "I don't give a crap." "You know you're jealous. I just got a promotion at Digidome, one of the finest media companies. I'm going to hang up." I was furious and annoyed, but something he said kept tickling my brain. I was way too angry to think about it at that moment, so I let it go. When I got back home afterward, I thought about what it was that Bobby said that tickled my brain, and then it hit me. He said he worked for Digidome, one of the finest media companies, which I had to agree with. They were responsible for hiring and recruiting some of the most talented influencers and journalists in our city. The reason that I kept thinking about it, Fred is the CEO and founder of the company. Bobby was working for my husband. I could not believe how wonderfully the universe aligned for me. That meant that I could finally teach Bobby a good lesson, not only for bothering me, but also for abandoning his children. I waited with excitement until Fred got back home. When he did, I told him all about what had happened during the day. "Did something happen? Why do you seem so hyper?" "Nothing happened per se, but I did find out something big." "Oh, what is it?" "So, Bobby called again." "That sick son of a gun. I swear if I had any way to get a hold of him, I would beat him up real good." "That's the thing. He may be way closer than we ever expected." Huh? What do you mean? Well, today he called me to brag about his big promotion at work, which is Digidome. You mean to tell me that he works at my company? Yeah. At first, I couldn't help but think his company name sounded really familiar, and then it hit me. Did you really not remember the company I created? Listen, I was way too angry to remember my own name. Cut me some slack. I'm kidding. Anyways, do you want me to fire him? Absolutely, but before you do, I was wondering if there was going to be any way to humiliate him. Definitely. Bold of you to think that I wasn't going to fire him in the worst way possible for him. With that, we began planning how to go about creating the best revenge plan. We decided that we would wait a few more weeks before executing our plan to fire him. That was because we were going to record his calls to me and have them played in front of everyone. The company was going to hold a huge event in 2 months, and to our luck, Bobby was going to be in charge of it. There were going to be several big names present, and we were going to tarnish his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I was able to pick up all of Bobby's calls without getting frustrated or angry. Just knowing that I had the biggest upper hand was enough to put a smile on my face as I listened to him ramble about his wealth and my lack of it. But this time, I made sure to record every conversation. These conversations were going to come back to bite him hard, and I couldn't wait for it. At the end of the 2 months, the event happened. I originally didn't plan to go because I didn't like big crowds or having to talk to a lot of people, which was why no one really knew who the big boss's wife was. However, this event was where I would make my appearance. I wanted to see Bobby's fall while I sat on the throne. Fred bought me this gorgeous and very expensive dress, and that was what I wore. I stayed in the car until Fred called me because we didn't want Bobby to see me and make a run for it. I only entered when Fred gave his speech, in which he told everyone about how he wanted to introduce his wife for the first time. When I walked up on that stage, Bobby was standing there. I saw his face drop and pale. I smirked at him as I walked by. He pulled out his handkerchief to dab the sweat that was all over his face. Fred then went on to praise me and talked about how much of an impact I had had on him these past 7 years and how it had been a joy to raise my kids with me. With every praise Fred aimed at me, I saw Bobby sweat even more. I beamed with pride as the crowd clapped for me, and then Fred's speech took a turn. He began to talk about how I had been getting harassed by my ex-husband recently. He told the crowd about how my ex-husband had abandoned me and my kids to go father another woman's children just because she had wealth. But the universe had different plans for my ex-husband because he was working for his company. The crowd gasped and erupted into murmurs about who my ex could have been. Fred asked everyone to quiet down and told them that he was going to reveal who it was. Bobby kept looking towards the exit, but he knew that if he dashed it, Fred would not even have to reveal who it was because he would have outed himself. Fred then pointed towards Bobby and told everyone that it was him. The crowd once again erupted in murmurs. Bobby looked like he was about to pass out, but Fred wasn't done yet. He told everyone that he had proof of all of this and proceeded to play the recordings of all the calls that Bobby had made to me in the past few weeks. Bobby stilled as he heard everything. Fred then announced that because of everything that Bobby did, he would no longer be working with his company. The crowd cheered for Fred and me as we walked off the stage. Bobby was escorted off the event and the rest of it went smoothly. I had served my revenge and there was nothing sweeter than that. Fred and I had a blast at that event, and I even managed to find someone who offered me a position at their firm. The day after the event, I got my last phone call from an unknown number. "You're awfully bold to call me again after last night. You tricked me." "Whatever do you mean?" "You absolute witch. Don't play stupid with me. How could you not tell me that you were married again? And that too, married to my boss?" "Like I told you several times, Bobby, I simply didn't care about you." "I know that, but the decent thing for you to do was to inform me." "So you would only stop harassing me if you knew who my husband was? And if my husband wasn't your boss, you would have continued to do it?" "Don't twist my words." "I'm not twisting anything. And you're one to talk about being decent, Bobby. You know what decent thing you have done? Not abandon your family. If you could do something like that, I can do something like this. Have fun with your current family, and I hope you'll find a new job." "I don't have a current family. My wife left me because of yesterday, and she took the kids. And it's all because of you." "I didn't do anything. You did this to yourself. If you had just not called me, your life would have been what you had always wanted it to be. But I guess you can't have your cake and eat it too. Goodbye, Bobby, and good luck." It felt liberating to finally get back at Bobby and to know that I destroyed everything good in his life. I hope that Bobby learns to never mess with me or my family again, because he will never get anything good out of that. Fred and I continue to thrive together, and our kids have grown into wonderful adults. My life is once again going smoothly, and I no longer stress out about Bobby's calls. I'm finally vindicated, and I feel way lighter than I have for the first time in a long while. Thank you for listening to my story. Hello, I'm Jenny, a 27-year-old woman who just got divorced. I met my husband Jake at college when I was in my freshman year, and he was in his sophomore year. I knew from the time that I met him that he was going to be the one for me. After graduating, we focused on our careers and worked hard to save a lot of money so we could buy a good place to live in. By the time we got married, we had been dating for 7 years. Right after we got married, we purchased our own apartment and decided to start trying for a baby. But after months of trying, we did some tests and got told that I was infertile. I was devastated and inconsolable for a long time, but Jake had been my rock at that time. Jake's sister-in-law had also come over a lot to comfort me, and I did find some comfort in her too. Those were a tough few months for me to grapple with my new reality, but eventually Jake and I began to see the pros of not having kids, like being able to spend twice the money on ourselves. About 2 years into Jake and I being married, we decided to be the ones to host for the holidays. My parents were on a cruise someplace, so it was Jake's family that joined us. Jake's parents were only stopping in town for a day because they were going on a road trip with some of their friends. They planned to stay the night at a motel so they could leave in the early hours of dawn without disturbing anyone. That only left Jake's brother Keith and his family, which included his wife Paula and his 4 kids. When Jake and I started dating, Keith and Paula had 2 kids from what Jake had told me. They were struggling back then as well. Keith wasn't working in a good enough job to support all of them, and Paula was adamant about being a stay-at-home mom. It was beyond me why they had 2 more children when they were struggling with the 2 they already had, but I digress. Anyway, that holiday, they asked us if they could stay with us for a week. "Guys, we need to ask you about something." "Yeah? What is it? Is everything fine?" Yeah, we just wanted to ask if we could have a tiny staycation at your place with the kids." "Staycation?" "Yeah, I mean, you're hosting the holidays and we were wondering if we could spend the entire week here until the 2nd. "We can't afford an actual vacation, and this would be some form of it for the kids." I don't know about that. Our apartment isn't very kid-friendly. We have a lot of expensive or even just fragile things that the kids could break. I'm sure you could manage for just a week, Jenny. Yeah, please, for the kids' sake. Come on, Jenny. Please just help out my family this once. Fine. But I am warning you that if anything gets broken or damaged by your kids, I expect you to compensate me for it. Yes, of course. I promise that we'll make sure the kids are well behaved. I wasn't too keen on allowing the kids in our home because I did have a lot of collections and other oddities hanging on walls or on shelves that were worth quite the buck. I had no other place to keep them away because every room in our house would go towards giving Keith and his family a place to stay. I felt really pressured into giving up the space that I considered comfort because Paula and Jake kept glaring at me while Keith looked at me like he was about to cry in desperation. I felt both intimidated and bad, so I gave in. Of course, my hesitation made Jake really upset with me. When Keith and Paula left our place that evening, Jake began lashing out at me for not helping the family. He asked me over and over again how I could be so heartless and value material things over family. He didn't even let me get a word in. He didn't speak to me for the next 2 days, and even though I was sure that I wasn't wrong to have concerns, I decided to put my own feelings aside and apologize, which Jake accepted and promised me that the holidays would be a wonderful time for us. When the holidays came around, it was a nightmare. The kids were a nightmare to deal with. Keith and Paula conveniently disregarded all their responsibilities and shoved them onto us, or me to be more specific, because Jake spent most of his time with Keith and Paula. Her kids were very undisciplined and very, very ruckus. They loved to destroy everything around them, and it was only a miracle that they didn't hurt themselves. I tried to get one of the other adults present to help with the kids, but they would always conveniently have some other plan to do at the moment. The only time I had true free time was on Christmas when Jake's parents looked after the kids for a couple of hours. By the time it was New Year's, I was exhausted and ready for them to go back home. It was probably the exhaustion that led to me having an outburst that was bigger than I meant for it to be. What happened was that all the adults were napping while I was tending to the kids as usual. I was changing the diapers of the littlest one when I turned away for a couple of minutes to use the washroom so I could wash my hands. In those few minutes, the other 3 kids went out into the living room and decided to climb onto the showcase that housed a good amount of my trinkets and also functioned as a stand for our TV. Well, to get better grips on the shelves, they decided to throw a bunch of the trinkets on it away, and one of them picked up one of the trinkets and began hitting the TV with it, which damaged the TV screen. When I heard the commotion and rushed into the living room, I was greeted by this huge mess. Of course, the commotion had been loud enough to wake everyone up. The sight of the mess and all of the damage made me lose it. That is it! Whoa, calm down, Jen. It's just a little mess. No, it's not a little mess. They've destroyed everything. I turn around for just a few minutes and everything is ruined. Don't be a drama queen, Jenny. They're just kids. You're right. They're just kids. They can't be blamed, but you can. You are a horrible parent. So is Keith. How dare you? Ever since you got here, I have not had a day of rest. I've been the one looking after them because none of you care to. They're not disciplined at all, and they love to break things. I told you that this would be an issue, and now you have to pay for it. Wow! With the way you're complaining about kids, I'm happy you're infertile. No woman like you should ever deserve to be a mother. Get out! Take your kids and get out! I was hurt and upset. How could Paula say that to me after she knew how sensitive that topic was? Not to mention, that was a really cruel thing to say. Once again, Jake got angry at me, but I didn't care. I was right and he knew it. He could have helped me out with the kids, but he chose not to either. We didn't speak for a couple of days, and I chose to spend New Year's with my best friend, Thea, who was very sympathetic to my situation. Jake and I eventually sorted things out, that I did make it very clear to him that I expected to be compensated for the damage, because aside from the TV, a lot of the trinkets were antique ones. I also told Jake that I never wanted to see or hear from Paula ever again. He begrudgingly agreed, but only because he knew I was right. The total damage costs came to around $2,000, and I decided to have them only pay half of it, considering their struggles. And then a couple of months later, Jake told me that he had something to tell me. So, Keith called me today. Oh, that's nice. What did he say? Turns out he got this huge promotion. That's great for him. Guess they won't be struggling anymore, huh? I'm happy for them. Yeah, but he'll be moving to another state, and it's way too expensive to move the whole family there. He asked if Paula and the kids could move in with us. No! I don't see why Paula can't handle the kids herself. Or, now that Keith will be earning more, they can hire a nanny to help her look after the kids. Come on, Jenny, don't be so mean. You know what happened the last time they stayed over for the holidays. I will not let that nuisance back into my home. It's not just your home, it's mine too. This is my family. I'm sorry you're too heartless to care about family, but I'm not that way. If you have such a giving heart, why don't you help them hire a nanny? Or better yet, why don't you go over and help her raise her children? Wow, you really don't care about how much Paula will struggle. Not after she made fun of me for infertility, I don't. You know what? You're too upset right now. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Good night. I couldn't believe Jake's audacity. He knew just how I felt about Paula and her kids coming over, especially after last time, but he still chose to ask me and insult me in the process too. Of course I cared about family, but that's a sentiment that should go both ways. I cared about his family, but they never seemed to care about me. I didn't see why I should have done more than they would have done for me. The next morning, we were back on the discussion, and I firmly told him no over and over again. I suggested alternatives to helping them too, like me sponsoring a nanny, or even us going over on the weekends and looking after the kids so Paula could have some time off. But he shot those down too. Every time I told him that Paula and the kids were not allowed in our home, he would get more and more frustrated. He used every tactic possible, emotional blackmailing, yelling at me, threatening to leave me, you name it, he tried it. I didn't budge. That was a hill I was willing to die on. This argument lasted a good week before suddenly Jake was acting all normal. That made me very suspicious, of course. He was very distant, but he no longer seemed agitated with me, nor did he try to ask me again to let Paula and her kids move in. After a week of constantly asking me and pestering me, this made alarm bells go off in my head. I decided to do a little snooping around. I waited until Jake had fallen asleep to take his phone and go through it. Yes, I know it's wrong, but when you have this intense gut feeling that something's wrong, you just want to check up on it. And that's what I did. I first went through his chats with his brother, and I saw one message from Keith that said, "Thanks for helping Paula and the kids." That immediately confirmed my suspicions that something was happening behind my back. I went through his chats with Paula and then found out that he had gone behind my back and told Paula that she and her kids could come and live with us. He also told her that he planned to give her my room because I was the one who didn't want to help her, so having to give up my room would teach me a lesson. I was furious. Jake and I each had our own rooms. They were rooms that we filled with things that both of us enjoyed individually. Mine also acted as my office on days that I worked from home. So giving up my room also meant giving up all forms of privacy. While a part of me wanted to wake him up right then and there and yell at him for going behind my back and villainizing me, the sane and rational part of me knew that it would lead to nowhere. I would be the one who would get hurt while Jake would continue to live well. I knew at that moment that I had the upper hand and I was going to play my cards right. According to Jake's text with Paula, she was set to move in 2 weeks, so that gave me 2 weeks to move out beforehand. The first thing I did the next morning was to book a storage room where I could store all the furniture. Yes, all the furniture. You see, after Jake and I got married, we purchased a pretty big apartment. We had more than enough money after saving for years together, and it was our dream apartment. However, after we purchased it, we obviously needed to furnish it, but Jake decided that he didn't want to do that immediately. He wanted to do it after another 6 months. Keep in mind that all we had with us was a mattress, no bed frame, some utensils, and our personal things. Jake said he was tired of constantly not having any money to spend from saving so much for years. I understood his issue back then, so I let him have it his way. 8 months passed and my home was bare as it was on the first day we moved in, save for the few trinkets I bought here and there. Whenever I brought up buying the furniture, Jake would get all moody and upset with me. So I took matters into my own hands and bought everything myself. He didn't spend a dime on anything. From sofas to bed frames and bookshelves to even mirrors, he didn't pay a cent. I was going to remove everything. The only things he paid for existed in his room, so I let that be. The next thing I did was contact my best friend, Fia, and ask her if I could stay over for a rather long period. "Hey, how's it going?" "Not that great." "Oh no, what's wrong?" Jake decided to go behind my back and let his sister-in-law and her 4 kids live with us because his brother is moving to another state for work, even though I explicitly told him not to. "Wait, is this the same sister-in-law that mocked you for being infertile?" "The one and only." "And why can't she take care of her own kids?" "Because they're reckless. Last time they were over, they destroyed about $2,000 worth of things. You can see why I don't want any of them in my house." "Holy crap, yeah. So what are you doing about it?" "Well, I snooped through Jake's phone and found out that he plans to give my sister-in-law my room as a punishment for not willing to help out." "What the hell?" So I was thinking that I would take everything out from the room and the house because I literally bought everything in it to begin with, and I'll keep it in a storage room. I love that thought process, but what about you? Yeah, that's what I was calling to ask about. Do you think I could stay with you until I get back on my feet? It might take a few months. Are you kidding me? Of course you can. We get to have sleepovers for a long time. Hell yeah, you can come over. Just let me know the time and date and I'll help you bring your stuff over. You're an angel. I felt more than ready to teach Jake a lesson. I knew this was technically the end of the marriage because I didn't want to be with someone who was so selfish that they failed to at least consider their partner's feelings. I spent the rest of the 2 weeks discreetly packing away my things and starting the filing procedures for divorce. At some point, except for the big and most commonly used furniture, the rest of it was slowly transported away during Jake's working hours. Thankfully, he was too caught up in his own thoughts to even notice the big differences in the house. A lot of my things were gone to Fia's place too, and he never noticed. My anxiety was high during those 2 weeks because I really wanted my plan to work out well, but also because I wanted to make as clean of an exit as possible. Once the 2 weeks were up, I knew that Jake would call me that day from work and ask me to clean out my room for Paula. So I took a day off work to get the final transporting of the furniture out. I took our couches and mantles and even all the bed frames. Jake would be left with the few things he had when we rented this apartment. Right as the movers had taken the things away and I sat in my car with the rest of my things to go to Fia's place, I got a call from Jake. "Hello?" "Yes, it's me." "What happened? Is everything okay?" "I need you to vacate your room. Paula and the kids are coming over." "I thought we discussed that it wouldn't be happening." "It's happening because I said so. Get on with the plan. And what about the kids? Where would they sleep? They'd have the guest bedroom to share. They're all young enough for that. And you have your room, but I won't have mine? No, because this is your lesson for refusing to help our family. You are a piece of work, truly. You know what? Don't worry, I knew about your plan, so I vacated my entire room, along with all of my belongings in the house. Why did you remove all your belongings? Because I said so. Get on with the plan. Goodbye. It felt amazing to say that to him, but even more than that, I was excited to hear his reaction to the whole thing. Before I left, I also made sure to leave him the divorce papers on the kitchen island because that was where he would first go after work to grab a cold drink. He was going to experience his shock in waves, and I was ready for that. I made my drive over to Fia's and we greeted each other in excitement. We quickly unloaded all my things and got to arranging the room she had given me in a basic manner. We tried to make it as homely as possible just so I was comfortable enough until I had enough time to fully unpack. Once we were done, we sat down to chat for a little while about how I was feeling and what I was going to do further on. However, all throughout that time, I couldn't help but constantly anxiously glance at my watch to check if Jake was done with work and on his way home. He did take longer than usual to get back home that day, but I figured that was probably because he was picking up Paula and the kids. But I knew he had reached home when I got a call from him. I initially ignored it just to stoke the fire a little, but I ended up giving in and picking up after the 5th call from him. What do you want, Jake? You took everything out of the house? Didn't I say that I vacated all of my things from the house? Yes, but that was our furniture and utensils. You can't just take them all away. Why can't I? I paid for them all, didn't I? Even after I repeatedly asked you to start buying things for the house, you never did. So I took away everything. What will Paula and the kids do? Not my problem. I told you to not let them come over, but you didn't listen. Instead, you went behind my back and disrespected me. You're cruel. No, Jake, you're the one that's cruel. I gave you my boundary and you violated it. You know what your sister-in-law and her kids did that last time, and you still invited them over. I would have been okay with you going over to stay there, but you insisted on them staying with us. So have it your way then. Oh, get over it, Jenny. It wasn't even that bad. Yeah, and you can get over me taking away everything that belongs to me too. It's not that bad. Also, I don't know if you saw it, but I've left your divorce papers on the kitchen island. You either sign it peacefully or you contact me through your lawyer. Goodbye. I hung up on him then, and he kept spamming me with calls after. I just put my phone on Do Not Disturb and continued to relax with Fia. All the anxiety in my body left after that phone call was done. I had nothing else to worry about. If Jake did decide to contest the divorce, I would still be safe because we signed prenups. And all the furniture I bought was bought using my individual money and not money from our joint accounts. Jake did end up contesting the divorce, but like I said, I was fine. I don't exactly know about what happened to Jake and Paula and her kids, but from the long rant text that Paula sent me, I'm guessing that they had to drive back to her place that night, and that really upset the kids because they were looking forward to staying at my place. She also told me that since I took away the bed frames, Jake went to live at their place until the new one came, and since they didn't have any spare rooms or beds, he had to sleep on the couch. She kept telling me that I should be ashamed of myself for putting people in need through harder times. A part of me did feel bad for finding that situation funny. Who were the people in need? It was definitely not her. I knew she was just trying to mooch off her responsibilities onto us. As for Jake, he played a stupid game and now he won his stupid prize. It's been about 8 months since all of this happened, and I can happily say that the quality of my life has improved a lot. Living with Fia has been amazing, and in fact, we were even discussing moving in together. That's about it for now. Thanks for listening. Hello friends, my name is Mia and I'm here to tell you the story of how I ruined my mother-in-law's life. Well, Rita, my mother-in-law, ruined her own life, but she may think that I am responsible for it. If she hadn't tried to make her son, Nigel, divorce me, she would have avoided getting divorced herself. So anyway, here is what happened and how I got rid of Rita's toxic presence from my life. Rita absolutely hated me. Why? No reason as such. She hated every woman her son Nigel dated. I could tell that she had an extremely unhealthy relationship with Nigel and always thought that women were out to trap her son and take him away from her. Her husband, my father-in-law, Luke, was not like her. He was a sweet man who still has an excellent relationship with me. He considers me his daughter, which is why I was super pissed when I discovered Rita's big betrayal. Now, let me just tell you what Rita tried to do when Nigel announced our engagement. She tried to say that I was a cheater and was sleeping with my best friend. It was bizarre and she had no proof. It was simply based on her suspicions. Look, me and my male best friend have been super close since childhood. We have a great bond, but we don't cross boundaries that our spouses have set for us. In fact, we do frequent double dates and even went on trips together. Nigel never had a problem and knew that I was loyal. Well, Rita didn't think so. She said, "A man and a woman cannot be that close, Nigel. There has to be something fishy going on. I can bet all my money that she is cheating on you." Mom, you are being ridiculous. Mia and her best friend are just that, best friends. There is no cheating going on. She rarely meets with him alone. I trust my fiancé completely. You are naive, Nigel. Mia is trapping you because you have a good income and can take care of her. One of these days you might find yourself baby trapped by this cheater. I don't know what you're talking about, Rita. None of that will happen. I love your son, and my best friend is just my best friend. Nothing is going on between us. You are being insulting when you say those things. I know you are lying, Mia. Don't try that innocent act with me. I know girls like you very well. Of course, Rita knew girls like that. She was one of them. But that wouldn't be discovered until later. Nigel didn't believe her ridiculous lies and we got married anyway. She tried to tell everyone that he was marrying a cheater. There was some misunderstanding I had with a few family members, but when Nigel told them the truth, they were rightfully pissed at Rita and apologized to me. Nigel also confronted Rita and yelled at her along with his father. Rita wasn't remorseful at all, but she promised to behave from then on. Guys, I really thought that Rita would change and end her stupid antics, but she didn't. What she did the next time was even worse. The beginning of Rita's end started when I got pregnant with our first child. It was a boy and everyone was happy for us. Nigel was super excited to be a father and Luke was excited to be a grandfather. The only one who wasn't excited at all was my mother-in-law, Rita. She started her Mia is cheating craziness and went as far as to say that the child was not Nigel's. We were all pissed and Nigel mostly kept me out of the drama so that I don't stress out too much. Now, here comes the fun part. As soon as my son was born, Rita saw him and said, "This child can't be my son's. He looks nothing like what Nigel looked when he was a baby. This cannot be your son, Nigel." Mom, what is wrong with you? This is my son. Not all babies look exactly like the baby version of their dads. Or, Mom, I didn't look like my dad's baby version either. You are being ridiculous. Nigel, you need to open your eyes. This child is too white to be yours. We are all too tan to have this skin. What the hell are you talking about, Rita? You are being ridiculous. The baby had a lighter skin tone because I am very fair. Plus, baby's skin color can get darker once they start to grow. At least have some logic when you try to accuse me. We had a long and big fight with Rita about this issue. Ultimately, Nigel kicked her out of the hospital and was mad at her. Well, Rita went out and immediately started to tell everyone what she saw and that she was sure the child wasn't Nigel's. Some people were having doubts since we didn't want the baby around everyone before he was a month old. There was a lot of pressure from Rita and people's gossip that was bothering us. Ultimately, I succumbed and agreed to get a DNA test done. Nigel did try to shut me down. He said, "Mia, you don't have to agree to this. I trust you completely. I know that our son is mine. Mom can go kick rocks." Nigel, please, I'm tired of hearing Rita call me names and people assume things about me. This drama has been going on for too long. I have nothing to hide, so I might just as well get over this. Mia, Nigel, I think I need to tell you guys something. What's up, Dad? I don't know how to say this, but Nigel, you might not be my biological son. Luke was at our house when we were having this conversation. He suddenly turned serious when he said this. We noticed that he had been acting a little off for some time, so we were immediately alert, but we never expected him to say this. We were shocked, but Nigel was more than me. He said, "Dad, what are you talking about?" Look, I went to a doctor recently and some things he said made me doubt that I am your biological father. Are you serious right now? Oh my God, are you sure there is a possibility? There is a big possibility, Nigel, and I think it's time we found out for sure. Mia, keep this a secret from Rita. Let's get me and Nigel tested as well. I want to confront her when the results are out. She is planning to host a family dinner when the DNA reports of Nigel and my grandson arrive. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. I agreed since we all thought this was a good plan. I took the responsibility since Nigel and Luke were way too stressed to manage this. The DNA test was done, and as promised, Rita threw a family dinner to announce the results in front of everyone. She really wanted to humiliate me, but in her excitement, she picked up the wrong envelope before announcing the results. Nigel, me, and Luke noticed, and it didn't say anything. Imagine our faces when Rita screamed with joy and said, "I was right! They are not a match. My son is not the father of Mia's son. Mia is a cheater." Rita was jumping up and down with joy when the results showed that the people who tested were not a match. This essentially said that there was no freaking connection between the two people who got tested. Rita was extremely delighted by the results because she thought that my husband wasn't my son's father. She saw it as an opportunity to get me kicked out of Nigel's life. That's why she was dancing with joy and screaming to everyone that my husband wasn't the father of my child. But I didn't bat an eye at her reaction. Meanwhile, Luke and Nigel went pale and were shaking with anger. Rita thought that they were mad at me and said, "See, I told you guys that Mia is a freaking cheater. Do you see this? Nigel is not the father of her child. That is not my grandson. That is some stranger's spawn that Mia is trying to pass off as yours, Nigel. Oh, my poor boy, Nigel. I tried to warn you, but none of you listened to me." Rita, before declaring the results of the DNA test to the public here, you should have checked them in private once. Now, why would I do that, Mia? Everyone here needs to know what a cheater you are. Do you think I would be gracious enough to try and save face? You don't deserve that. You deserve to be kicked out of our lives for being such a cheater. When Rita said this, it was Nigel who cracked first. I could tell that he was exceptionally mad and ready to ruin everything. I understood his reaction because I knew he was feeling betrayed, so I didn't stop his outburst. He said, "Stop it, Mom. Just stop. Mia isn't going anywhere. She is my freaking wife who I love and trust with my own life. She is the freaking mother of my child, Nigel, what the hell are you saying? These results clearly show that the child is not yours. Mia has cheated on you and is trying to baby trap you. Here, you can check for yourself. No, I don't need to check anything. You need to recheck the results more carefully and then talk. You shouldn't have made us take a DNA test in the first place. Now, look at what you have done. Nigel, I understand that you are sad and in shock. This probably doesn't feel real to you, but it's the truth, son. Your wife is a cheater. She is making you raise another man's child. Now, this was the moment when Luke thundered and decided to speak. He was too frozen in shock and too angry to form his words. After the initial shock wore out, he was ready to raise a storm. He yelled at Rita and said, "So, Mia is making Nigel raise someone else's child? Like you tried to pass off Nigel as my son years ago?" "Luke, what are you talking about, dear? Nigel is your son. I am not like this cheap woman, Mia, who opens her legs for everyone. Why are you making such accusations? I have revealed the truth and now everyone is attacking me because of Mia." "Why don't you recheck the report carefully, Rita? That will give you a better understanding of what we are talking about. Here, these are the DNA tests done between Nigel and our son. As you all can see, it says that they are father and son." "What? Then why does this document say that they are not related? What is going on?" If you had read the report carefully, you would have found that the test was done for Nigel and Luke. And the report says that they are not related at all. So Nigel is not Luke's son at all. Rita looked at me with disbelief when I said that. She never expected this to happen to her. Her carefully guarded secret of 25 years was finally loose and she couldn't do anything to stop it from spreading. Rita had made the huge mistake of calling family members to expose my supposed secret, but it backfired badly when her own secret was revealed instead. Luke and Nigel were pissed, and Rita didn't miss that either. She knew that she was in big trouble. She kept reading the report in her hand again and again. She looked at it and all of us were in disbelief. She said, No, this can't be true. This has to be a mistake. Nigel is Luke's child. I am sure of it. We were trying for a child when I got pregnant with Nigel. Nigel is your child, Luke." "Oh, really, Rita? So you were saying that the reports are false and you didn't cheat on me at all?" "Nigel is your son, Luke. You have to believe me. This witch, Mia, has tricked you into getting a paternity test so that she can mess up your report and get revenge against me." "This wasn't just Mia's plan, Rita. It was mine as well. Remember how I visited a doctor recently to run a couple of tests? Yeah, the test came back and it showed that I have been infertile my entire life. I never knew because I never went to see a doctor before. There is no way Nigel is my son." No, this can't be happening. This can't be true. This can't be true." "I even have a hunch who Nigel's biological father is." "Is it Fred?" "I know it's Fred, your ex before you married me." Rita turned as white as a ghost when she heard that. Her reaction alone gave us the confirmation we needed. Nigel was super quiet and not saying much, just giving Rita some angry looks from time to time. I knew that he was crushed by the betrayal and scared for a different reason. Everyone around us felt the same sense of betrayal that Luke and Nigel felt. Everyone looked at Rita in disbelief and anger. Her own mother looked like she was about to faint. None of the people there knew about her affair or the fact that Nigel was not Luke's son. It was a disaster for Rita. She started to cry when Luke said, "You don't even have to tell me, Rita. Your reaction alone says that it was indeed Fred who you cheated on me with. Doesn't matter, actually. Any love I had for you is already gone. I have been suspecting this for a while. Now that the truth is out, I don't want to spend another moment with you. I want a divorce." "Luke, What are you even saying? What happened was a long time ago. I cut off Fred as soon as I was pregnant with Nigel. I swear he doesn't even know about Nigel. You are Nigel's father through and through. You are the father of my son, Luke.
That I am, Rita. I raised that man for 25 years. I don't care what the DNA tests say. Nigel is my son. He will always be my son. He might not be my miracle, but he is my blessing. I will be his father till the day I die.
Luke's declaration was just what Nigel needed to dispel his fears. My poor husband was worried that he would lose the only father he knew in his life. When Luke assured him of his stance, Nigel burst into tears. I was comforting my poor husband while Luke and the others dealt with Rita. Rita said, "You were right, Luke. You raised my son for 25 years. He is yours. We can just forget that the DNA test exists. Things can go back to normal. We can—"
No, just no, Rita. Things will never go back to normal. Every time I look at you, I will be reminded of your betrayal. Nigel might be my son, but you are no wife of mine. A woman who cheats on her own husband cannot be my wife. I am going to divorce you. That's final.
No, 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 Luke, you can't do this. You can't do this. We have been married for 30 years. You can't leave me over this. Luke!
Rita was in pure shock and refused to understand what she was being told. The people around, including her own family, were throwing insults at Rita and agreeing with Luke's decision. Rita was still crying and desperately asking for forgiveness. She then decided to plead with Nigel and said, "Nigel, look at what Luke is saying. He's going to leave me. Please don't make him leave me. Please make him understand, son." Don't you dare call me son. I don't want to call you mother anymore. You are the most vile woman I have ever known in my life. You hid my parentage. You dragged my wife through dirt for nothing when you were the one hiding the nasty secret. I can't even look at you now.
No, no, Nigel, I am your mother. That is true, I swear. I gave birth to you. I am sorry, son. I am so sorry for everything. Please don't hate me. I made a mistake. Mia, please, you are a woman. You understand what I am going through right now. Please make them understand.
Now, that is something I never expected to happen. Rita was so desperate that she started to beg me for help. She was pathetic and disgusting. She expected me to smile and ignore her sins just because I was a woman. How the hell did she think I would be on her side? I literally wanted her to burn in hell and suffer on earth. Oh, hell no, Rita. You dug your own grave. You were the one convincing Nigel to divorce me, saying that my son isn't hers. Now that it's true for you, how did you expect I will support you? You targeted me and my innocent son for nothing. You betrayed my husband and my father-in-law for 3 decades. You don't deserve anyone's forgiveness. I agree with Luke. He needs to divorce you.
It was a mistake, Mia. You are an honest woman, and I know you really care about your family. Your new family is about to be broken, Mia. Please don't let it happen. My new family includes me, my son, Nigel, and Luke. You are not my family, Rita. A woman who treated me so badly and betrayed her own family so badly cannot be my family. I don't want you around me or my son again. The rest is for Nigel to decide. I don't want you anywhere near me too, Rita. Stay the hell away from me and my family. Dad is doing the right thing by divorcing you. You deserve that. And that is what you wanted, right? You wanted to prove that a son doesn't belong to his father. You wanted the father to divorce his wife. That's what's happening now, Rita. Unfortunately for you, it's happening to your family. Rita looked like she had been doused in ice water. Nigel was a warm and loving person.
No one, not even me, ever saw this side of him. He was super mad, but also extremely cold. He didn't shout or yell at Rita like the others. He remained calm and talked in the coldest voice I have ever heard. At that point, everyone knew he meant what he was saying. He would literally never contact Rita again. Rita sank to the floor while not making any eye contact. All the family members were berating her and calling her horrible names. I didn't feel bad for her. Instead, it made me super happy. Luke also informed her that she needed to be out of his house soon. It was Luke's house since he inherited it from his father before his marriage. Also, we live in an at-fault state, so it would be likely that Luke would sue Rita for paternity fraud and escape from giving her alimony. Rita was now seriously in a big mess. Days passed and Luke stuck to his word. He actually went straight to a divorce lawyer the next day. He also formally started an eviction process against Rita. She threw a big tantrum complete with crying, begging, and even yelling. Luke wasn't going to go soft on her anymore. He wanted her out of his life as soon as possible. Rita also blew up my and Nigel's phones with texts and calls. It was mostly her begging and making ridiculous excuses for what she did. We read only a few and blocked her after that. Rita then showed up at our house to cry to us. She said, "Luke is kicking me out, guys. I have nowhere to go. I only have very little money that I need to get a divorce lawyer. I need a place to stay." "You can go anywhere you want, Rita. We won't be the ones housing you. Plus, we already told you that we want nothing to do with you." "I am your mom, Nigel. Why are you calling me by my name? I am your mother." Now, this pissed me off a lot. Look, I was glad that Rita was getting her just dessert and I won against her, but this entire paternity fiasco was very hard on both Nigel and Luke. While Luke was dealing with it his way, Nigel was a mess. It hurt to see my poor husband cry and lose himself in sadness. I was having a hard time consoling and comforting him while dealing with a newborn. So when Rita wanted to act like it was all no big deal, I was pissed. I said, "I believe you have already lost that privilege, Rita. From now on, you are just a stranger to us. And Nigel is right. We won't be the ones housing you." "Mia, please don't do this to me. My grandson needs his grandma in his life." "Don't you dare call my son your grandson. Your own son refused to call you mom. And you can't be a grandma to the child you never wanted in your life. Don't try and use my innocent child to guilt us. It won't work." "We have had enough of your bullshit, Rita. It's time for you to leave. Don't bother showing up again because I will call the cops on you. Trust me when I say you don't want more legal trouble after this." Rita did some more crying and pleading before Nigel shut the door in her face. It was satisfying to see Rita suffering since she messed up so many lives because of her poor choices. We went back inside and waited for Rita to leave. She did leave when she realized that we wouldn't budge. After that, Rita kind of stayed away until it was time for her to leave Luke's house. She showed up with her stuff again to try and beg us or guilt us into letting her in. Nothing worked, and she left when we threatened to call the cops again. I had heard that she was staying with a friend who got her a job in her office as a warehouse worker. Now, the divorce battle was kind of ugly since Rita tried her best to get things in her favor. But like I said, we live in an at-fault state, so her stupid excuses didn't do her any good. They got divorced in 6 months and parted ways soon. She did keep harassing Luke to get her old life back, but it didn't work. She is now miserable, working in a warehouse and earning only the bare minimum. She has been cut off from the entire family, and no one has taken her side. She doesn't even get invites to attend parties and family gatherings anymore. Nigel and Luke are doing much better after joining therapy. It's good to see them still hold that strong bond despite the DNA report. We still have weekly family dinners, and Luke comes over frequently to spend time with his grandson. Overall, we have managed to swing back to our normal lives while Rita is rotting in some warehouse, lonely and miserable. Hello, my lovely people here. I'm Diana, and I will tell you my story. Now, you'll have to excuse me for using fake names because I might get identified. I don't want that happening for several reasons, so I will write my apologies here beforehand. My story does have some sweet revenge that I got against my now ex-husband Liam. Liam and I had been married for 8 years and dated for 2 more years. We were in love, or so I thought. Those 2 years I spent with him were magical. My parents were deceased and I only had my sister as family. So having him as a family made me very happy. Liam was also orphaned but didn't have siblings. We met in college and everything was going perfectly. That was until he told me his plan for the future. He said, "Diana, you know that I recently completed my graduation. I know I'm working a decent job, but I'm not satisfied with it. I actually want to open a startup. It has all..." "Oh, that's a great idea, Liam. If this is your dream, go for it. You deserve it, and I believe in you." "I want to open this business, but I don't have money. I've been depressed about it lately. I even brought a ring for you, but didn't have the courage to pop the question. All this is taking a toll on me." "Seriously? I would love to marry you, Liam. I know that you will need money. I'll help you. I have some savings that I can spare. I'll drop out of college and take another job to support us. I can always come back and finish the degree later." "You would do that for me? That would be the best solution to my problem. God, I love you so much, Diana. You have no idea how relieved I am right now. I almost thought that my dream wouldn't happen." Liam seemed happy with this idea. My sister Sue and her husband weren't so thrilled, but supported me anyway. They saw how happy I was. I stupidly went with my decision and married Liam. Then, for 8 years, I shouldered the entire household and business expenses while he built his company. I loved my husband and wanted him to pursue his dream. I didn't even have a stake in the company. My husband registered the company in only his name because we were family, and this was a way to avoid taxes. I was stupid, and it was love. I didn't bat an eye at that. I thought that we would be together forever. Boy, I was wrong. The disaster happened when Liam's company was picking up pace. He had landed several big clients in a short while and was finally starting to make profits. He was super happy and I was proud of his achievements. I had recently discarded one of my 2 jobs because Liam started to contribute to the house. Everything was finally going as we had planned, or so I had imagined. I really thought that we were living the dream, but it was actually the start of a nightmare. One evening, Liam came back from work late. He looked grim and almost stoic. I immediately knew that something was horribly wrong. He walked up to me and said, "We need to talk, Diana." "What's the matter, Liam? Are you sick? You don't look very well. You're scaring me. Tell me, what is wrong?" "You need to pay attention and listen to what I will say. It's important." "I'm all ears, Liam. Just tell me what's bothering you." "I am filing for a divorce." I felt like I was hearing wrong. It didn't seem real to me. I was stunned and didn't know what to make of what my husband just said. To be honest, I think I was too shocked to even believe what I had just heard. I said, I don't think I heard you right, Liam. Did you just say that you have filed for divorce? You have heard me right, Diana. I'm going to divorce you, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. What are you talking about, Liam? What did I ever do? Why this sudden decision? Do you want me to be honest with you, Diana? I knew that hearing the truth would destroy me. By his stoic face, I could tell that Liam had lost all love for me. Still, I wanted to know why he was doing this. I wanted to know why my marriage of 8 years was crumbling even after I gave it everything. I somehow held my tears and said, "Yes, I want to hear it. I want to know what happened so bad that you want to dissolve 8 years of marriage." Well, I'll get straight to the point then. I don't think you're right for me anymore. I need a better wife than you now. Wait, what? You want someone better than me now? What does that even mean? Look, you are a college dropout with a barely above minimum wage job. You aren't even pretty to be called a trophy wife. Sure, we look good when I was a store employee, but now, when I'm a businessman, we simply don't match. You spoil my look and don't suit my new status. I felt like Liam had slapped me physically. The pain of knowing that your partner doesn't love you anymore is probably the most painful thing ever. But to have him insult your looks, your education, and your life like that is just... it is beyond words. I just looked at him, shocked, with tears streaming down my eyes. When I couldn't take it anymore, I simply held my head in my hands and started to cry out. How could the man I loved so much turn into a horrible man like that? I had no freaking idea. I did notice Liam withdraw from me for the past few weeks, but I chalked it up to him being stressed at work. It was partly true. He did work on some serious clients during that time. But I didn't know that he was also working on how he could get rid of me. The decision had been made. He reminded me that I couldn't change his mind. Even when I was crying, he looked irritated and said, "Don't think that your tears will sway me, Diana. It won't work. My decision is final. I have been silently watching my new colleagues show off their rich and beautiful wives. I have been approached by numerous women who wanted to be with me. I couldn't do anything because I'm married. I know that if I divorce you, I will get a way better woman. We don't have kids yet, so we should get divorced now. So, this is why you've been avoiding conversations about having a baby. I am such a fool. I just thought that you were stressed. I'm such an idiot. It's a good thing that I realized early what a disaster having kids with you would be. I wouldn't be rid of you ever. Now, I can't just pretend to have made a mistake that I rectified soon enough. People will forget you ever existed." Is getting a rich and beautiful wife so important to you, Liam? Has my love and support meant nothing to you? I helped you build this business. Your success is not just your own. Whoa. Let me remind you, Diana, my success is my own. We had already agreed that my business would stay mine. You have no part in that. You will get nothing in the divorce. Guys, at this point, I was just mad. I looked at Liam like I didn't even recognize the man anymore. He completely erased my contribution to his business for 8 years. All the money I gave him and the bills I paid, it was all gone in the air. He was claiming that the company was all his own making, and I shouldn't expect anything from it. I was furious. I said, "What the heck do you mean, Liam? I have given you money for the company for over 8 years. I have an equal stake in your business and should be getting half of it in the divorce." Oh, no, no, no. I won't be giving you anything. I will hire the best lawyers with my new money and screw you in court. Since you are only a college dropout with little money, you won't even be able to afford a good lawyer. You won't be able to do a thing. How dare you insult me like that? I dropped out of college to fund your startup. I dropped out not because I failed classes, but to support your dream. I freaking worked 2 jobs to fund your damn business. You did your job as a girlfriend and wife. Now, since I have more money than you could ever imagine, you don't need to do those things for me. I will divorce you and bring home a wife who will suit my status better. You can go have a tantrum because this is the only thing you can do right now. The divorce papers will be delivered in a week. Be ready. I sat there, shocked, taking in Liam's words. The way he callously discarded me and my contribution was sad, but also very infuriating. I never imagined my life or my marriage would turn out like this. I just couldn't believe it. But it was true. My husband just insulted me and was leaving me for good. What little hope I had of this being a dream was destroyed when I got the divorce papers in hand. His lawyer served me when I was at work. All my colleagues saw this and were furious to know what was going on. My boss let me go home early and I took the offer. I went home and bawled my eyes out while my husband was God knows where. But as I thought things through, my sadness gave way to other feelings. I was freaking angry. I immediately took my phone and called my sister. She heard my voice and said, "Oh my God, Diana, is something wrong? You don't sound right to me. What's going on?" "Sue, Liam is leaving me. He had his lawyers serve me divorce papers today. He had told me about it a few days ago, but I didn't believe it until now." "What the hell, Diana? Why is Liam divorcing you? What is happening? This is so out of the blue." I tearfully told Sue everything that happened between me and Liam. After a while, her husband, my brother-in-law, Siler, also joined in and was briefed. They heard my tale and were furious on my behalf. They immediately came home and started to comfort me. After a while, when I had calmed down, I said, "I can't take this betrayal, Sue. I need to do something. I'm not going to deal with Liam's nonsense. He thinks he can betray me and get away with it. I poured my money into that company too." "Absolutely, Diana. We won't let him get away with this. I'm glad you're thinking of doing something instead of being a heartbroken doormat." "Oh, he thinks I can't do anything because I'm a college dropout. He wants someone rich and beautiful in his arms, not a loser like me." That is one of the most horrible things I have heard a man say to his wife. This is insane. I wonder what his clients would think if they heard this. They're pretty old-fashioned people and don't like people acting this way. "Do you know his client, Siler?" "Liam never told me that." "Yes, I do know Liam's clients. Some of them gave him business because I vouched for him. Now I see that it was a mistake. What a waste." It was then that a plan started to form in my mind. Liam thought that he had it all to push me out of the company. He thought that hiring a good lawyer would make sure he wouldn't have to give me a share of his business. Well, where will he find the money to hire a lawyer if his clients pull out? Immediately, I knew what to do. I said, "Siler, can you contact those clients directly? I would like to talk to them." "Sure, I can do that, Diana. What are you planning?" "I'm going to inform them of what's happening. You said that they're old-fashioned people. I hope they won't take this lightly and do something. I would convince them to withdraw their support." "Oh my God, that is a brilliant idea. Liam doesn't deserve the success he claims to be his. People need to know what shit he's pulling with his family. Who knows what shit he would pull with them, right? Exactly, Sue. That's what I would like to tell them. I need to contact them immediately. Zyla, can you help me? Zyla and Sue both agreed to help me out. Like I said, they were furious on my behalf. I knew that through them I could go to all of Liam's clients. If there was someone Zyla didn't know, I would easily get their contact through the other clients. As soon as the plan was finalized, we got to work. We spoke to all the clients within record time. Let me just tell you, Zyla wasn't kidding when he said that the clients were old-fashioned. They were indeed furious to know what Liam said and did to me. They didn't want to do any kind of business with someone who didn't have proper morals and ethics. So they did what I hoped they would do. They decided to pull their contacts. When Liam arrived home from work, Zyla and Sue had already left. It wasn't that late and barely evening. Liam looked a little distressed. I immediately spoke to him and said that I had signed the divorce papers and was prepared for divorce. But I won't make it easy for him. He kind of smirked at me and said that something along the lines of, "We will see about that." Then he promptly went to freshen up. It was after an hour that he came down frantically looking for me. I was on the couch casually sipping my coffee. I knew that this conversation would happen, so I wasn't surprised. "What the hell is going on? What did you do, Diana?" "What are you talking about, Liam? You need to explain because I'm not a mind reader." "Don't play innocent, Diana. I went to withdraw money and it didn't go through. I gave the bank a call and they said that my deposits had been reversed. On my client's request, I asked my clients and they went off on me about how I wronged you, so they didn't want any business with me. Did you do this?" "Ah, that one. Yes and no." I could tell that my answer pissed him off. I was enjoying his reaction. I realized long back that this horrible man didn't love me anymore. He simply used me and was done when he thought he didn't need me financially anymore. He didn't deserve any kind of love or care from me. All of it was gone. He didn't deserve my mercy or love. Liam looked furious and shouted, "What the hell, Diana? Be clear. You're getting on my nerves." "There is no need to shout, Liam. Let me explain it to you. No, I didn't tell your clients to terminate their contracts. Yes, I did talk to them about your behavior and how you might be an untrustworthy man." "What the hell, Diana? You have no right to go behind my back and..." "And what, Liam? Tell everyone the truth? They would have known it someday. I simply told them sooner so that they could make their decisions faster and not regret it later." "You did this on purpose. You sabotaged my business. You had no right. You had no right." "I have every right, Liam. You thought that you could screw me over by not giving me the business. You used me for money and thought you could easily cast me aside without facing the consequences. Well, guess what, Liam? This college dropout can and will destroy your business if you don't cooperate with me. I have only just started. With Zyla and Sue's help, I will make sure you can't have any business in this city." Now, Liam looked at me like he didn't recognize me. He realized that my jab was inspired by his own words. He didn't expect me to do something to make my situation better. In none of his dreams or nightmares did he ever imagine it happening so fast either. I wanted to laugh at his expression. He knew that my words couldn't be discarded. I had warned Liam before and did what I said. I was going to make him pay for what he did. Liam said, "You can't do that to me, Diana. You are being ridiculous. You know how I made this business from scratch. And you used my monetary and emotional support for your business. I wouldn't have done this if you weren't so cruel to me. Now, you can't change that. Look, We can talk about this, Diana. This business is my dream. It is my baby. Please don't do this. We can try and fix this marriage if you want. I started to laugh like a maniac when he talked about trying to fix our marriage. He was a freaking idiot if he thought that I would listen to that bullshit. There was no way I would ever give him a chance knowing that he would take off whenever his business got better. I wasn't going to forget the way he